Once upon a time, in the vibrant city of Enugu, there lived a woman named Madam Grace. Madam Grace was a strong and a hardworking woman. Her husband had died in a car accident when their daughter was barely 2 years old. Madam Grace was left with the sole responsibility to cater for their child, Isabella. She had built a life of comfort for herself and her child. The death of her husband left a deep scar in her heart, and she vowed never to allow the tragedy to come in the way of her daughter's future. She poured all her energy into her fabric business in Ogbete main market, selling high quality lace, Ankara and George wrappers to wealthy customers from different parts of Nigeria. She worked hard to ensure Isabella had everything she needed: a good education, a comfortable home, and most importantly, the guidance of a mother who wanted the best for her child. But despite her efforts, there was one thing she feared the most. It was the kind of friends Isabella kept. One evening, as they were eating on the dining table, Madam Grace said to her daughter, "Isabella, my daughter, listen to me. The kind of friends you choose today will determine your future." Isabella groaned as she sat across from her mother at the dining table, her spoon playing with the steaming plate of jollof rice before her. "Mama, must we talk about this every time?" she sighed. Madam Grace gave her a long, knowing look. "Yes, we must, because I see the way these girls act. Chi, Blessing, and Vicky. They don't seem like good friends, and they are not good for you." Isabella rolled her eyes. "Mama, they are just my classmates. We just talk and laugh, that's all." Her mother sighed. "My dear, I know the difference between classmates and friends. You really need to be careful, oh. I have seen many young girls destroy their lives and went astray because they refused to listen. Those girls are not like you, and they are not raised the same way I raised you." Isabella bit her lower lip. She loved her mother, but sometimes she felt like she was being too overprotective. What was wrong with having fun? Her friends weren't criminal, they were just exciting, adventurous, and full of life. "But Mama, I am not a child," she muttered. Madam Grace frowned. "Being careful doesn't mean you're a child. It means you're wise. Look around you, Isabella. How many girls have lost their future because of one careless mistake?" After some moments of silence, Madam Grace sighed, her tone softer this time. She reached for Isabella's hand. "I have worked hard to give you the best life. Please, my child, do not let bad friends ruin what I have built." Isabella squeezed her mother's hands gently but said nothing. She knew her mother meant well, but she was tired of being the obedient girl, whereas her friends lived freely. Little did she know that this one decision would come at a costly price. It was a hot Friday afternoon, and Isabella stood outside the school gate with her friends, Chi, Blessing, and Vicky, as they waited for their ride home. Chi, who was always full of energy, nudged Isabella playfully. "Have you heard? The biggest party of the year is happening tomorrow night." "A party?" Isabella raised an eyebrow. Blessing flipped her braids over her shoulder. "Not just in any party, babe. This one is at Prince Views Hotel." Vicky grinned. "And guess what? Some rich university guys from Lagos will be there, tall, fresh, and loaded." The girls giggled excitedly, but Isabella hesitated. She already knew what her mother would say. "You're a child, Isabella. You don't have any business going to places where adults go." Vicky mocked. Isabella shook her head. "I don't think I can go." Chi scoffed. Are you a baby? You are no longer a baby, oh. You are now a big girl, or you are still afraid of your mother. It's better you get up now and become the big girl that you are meant to be." Their words stung Isabella. She hated the feeling that she was the childish one in their group. I am not afraid of her, she muttered. Then prove it. Blessing challenged. Come with us. It's just a party. We will have fun, we will dance, and come back home. What is the worst that could happen? The way they said it made it seem harmless. A party, just one night of fun. Nothing bad could happen, right? After a long pause, Isabella sighed. Fine, I will come. The girls shouted in excitement. The night of the party came. Isabella waited for her mother to go to bed before sneaking out of the house. She had told her mother she was tired and wanted to sleep early, so Madam Grace did not suspect anything. With shaky hands, she slipped into a tight red dress that Chichi had given her. It was a bit too short, but Blessing had said it made her look hot and attractive. She put on high heels, even though she wasn't used to wearing them, and dabbed a little of her mother's perfume on her neck. By the time she got to Princeville Hotel, the party was already in full swing. The music was loud, the lights were bright, and the air smelled of perfume, sweat, and alcohol. People were dancing everywhere. Laughter and shouting filled the space. Isabella felt both excited and nervous. It was nothing like their school. Then she saw Derek. He was standing near the bar, watching her with interest. He was tall, dark skinned, and confident. He had the kind of presence that made people turn their heads. His dark designer shirt hugged his broad shoulders, and his wrist gleamed with an expensive gold watch. He smiled at her and she felt her heart skip. Hey, pretty girl, he said smoothly. What's your name? She found herself saying, My name is Isabella. Nice to meet you, Isabella. Derek grinned. You look stunning tonight. Isabella blushed. She had never been called stunning before. Come, let's dance, he said, taking her hand. They danced, and for the first time, Isabella felt free. She wasn't just Madame Grace's daughter tonight. She was someone exciting, someone desirable. After a few dances, Derek handed her a drink. Relax. It's just juice, he winked. She hesitated. She had never drank alcohol before, but she didn't want Derek to think that she was being childish, so she took a sip, then another one. After some moments, the room started spinning, but she laughed, feeling warm and happy. Derek held her close, whispering in her ear, Come, let's go somewhere quieter. The last thing Isabella remembered was following him down a dark hallway. Then everything went blank. The next morning, a sharp pounding headache woke Isabella from sleep. Her eyelids were heavy, her mouth was dry, and a strange numbness spread through her body. She blinked, confused by her surroundings. The last thing she remembered was Derek's deep voice, the strong perfume on his clothes, and the way her head had spun after drinking the juice he gave her. Now, she was in a strange hotel room, lying on a large bed with rumpled white sheets. Her dress was crumpled, her shoes were missing, and worst of all, Derek was gone. Her heart began to race. She sat up quickly, feeling a sharp pain between her thighs, and a fresh wave of dizziness crashed over her body. Something was off. What happened last night? She pressed her fingers against her temples, trying to recall the incident, but the night was a blur. She remembered only dancing, drinking, and laughing, then nothing. Fear crawled up her spine. She stumbled off the bed, her bare feet hitting the cold tile floor. A wave of nausea hit her, but she swallowed it down. She needed to get out of there. She grabbed her handbag from the floor and fumbled inside for her phone. It was almost 6 a.m. Her hands shook as she dialed Shishi's number. Shishi did not pick up. She tried Blessing, still no answer. Her last hope was Vicky. The phone rang, and after a few seconds, Vicky picked up her phone. Hello? Vicky's voice sounded groggy. Vicky, Isabella whispered, her voice breaking. Where are you? Where is Derek? What happened last night? There was a brief silence and then Vicky replied, Isabella, just go home. Don't ask too many questions. Isabella's throat tightened. What do you mean I should not ask too many questions? I am telling you that I don't remember anything that happened yesterday night. I woke up in a hotel room alone. Listen, Vicky interrupted, her voice turning cold. Nobody forced you to come to this party. You enjoyed yourself, right? So just move on. Tears stung Isabella's eyes. Enjoyed herself? She felt violated and ashamed. But Vicky had already ended the call. Isabella felt her knees weak and she collapsed onto the bed, sobbing. She had made a terrible mistake. She dragged herself out of the hotel room, flagged down a taxi, and went home, praying that her mother had not noticed she was gone. Then, 2 months later, Isabella started noticing obvious signs. She had missed her period, she felt nauseous every morning, and was constantly exhausted. She tried to ignore it, hoping it was just stress and school, so she waved it off. Then one evening, as she struggled to eat her food, she felt nauseous and excused herself from the table. Rushing to the bathroom, her stomach twisted and she vomited violently. When she came out, her mother was standing by the door, arms folded across her chest. Isabella, what is wrong with you? Madam Grace asked, her sharp eyes searching Isabella's face. Isabella forced a smile. Nothing, Mama. I just ate too much. Her mother didn't believe her. You have been acting strangely these days. Are you sick? No, no, Mama. I am fine. But Madam Grace knew her daughter too well. Are you sure you are okay? I promise, Mama, I am fine. Okay, then we'll have to go to the hospital. Mama, there will be no need for that. I will be fine. I insist, Madam Grace said. The next morning, Madam Grace took Isabella to the hospital. After a series of tests was conducted, the doctor walked inside the room with a lab result, his face unreadable. Madam, your daughter is pregnant. Preg what? She's already 2 months gone, the doctor said. Madam Grace turned to her daughter. Is this true? She asked. Isabella couldn't speak. Tears poured down her face. Hey, I am finished. How did this happen, Isabella? But Isabella could not talk. She was still shocked by the news. Isabella, I warned you. I begged you to stay away from those girls, but you refused to listen. Now see what has happened to you. The walls of the hospital felt like they were closing in on them. Her life was over. The news spread like wildfire. The whisper followed her everywhere she went, on the streets, in the market, even at the hospital where she went for checkups. Do you hear about Madam Grace's daughter, the only child of that rich widow now? She's pregnant though. You don't mean it. That only child? What does she want that her mother couldn't provide for her? My dear, if you ask me, who will I ask? The children of nowadays, I don't know what they want, the other woman said. But the worst of it all was Isabella's friends. They kept their distance because their parents has already warned them about Isabella, that she is not a good friend, that they should stay away from her. When Isabella called her friends, their phone will either be switched off or they will ignore them. At school, Chichi and Blessing acted like they didn't know her. They would always keep their distance from Isabella. Then, one day, Isabella saw them laughing in the hallway. She walked up to them, hoping and praying for their support. Chichi, Blessing, please, I need to talk to you about something. They turned to her, their eyes filled with mock pity. Ah, Isabella, Chichi said, smirking. How is your baby bump? Blessing shocked. She wanted to be a big girl. Now she's carrying a big problem. Ha ha ha. They laughed and walked away, leaving Isabella standing alone and humiliated. Her world had fallen apart, but in the midst of shame and pain, there was only one person who never left her side. It was her mother. Despite the disappointment Madam Grace had faced, she refused to abandon her daughter. One evening, as Isabella sat on her bed, crying for the hundredth time, her mother entered the room and sat beside her. She didn't speak immediately. Instead, she gently pulled Isabella into an embrace. My daughter, it is okay. You should not continue like this. You have already cried enough, and I believe you have learnt your lesson. I know you made a mistake, and I was highly disappointed. But I will not cast you aside because you are my only daughter. I want you to get up and pick the pieces of yourself. This is not the end of you. Life only teaches us lessons that would make us take the right step in future, and I hope you have learnt one. This is not the end of you, my child. Isabella sobbed in her mother's chest. Mama, I'm really sorry. I know I have disgraced you. I have ruined my life. Madam Grace held her tightly. No, my child, your life is not ruined. I believe you can still make something out of your life. You have only fallen, and when a child falls, she must get up no matter what it takes. With her mother's support, Isabella carried her pregnancy, and at the end of 9 months, Isabella gave birth to a baby boy. It wasn't easy to be a teenage single mother, but with her mother's encouragement and support, Isabella found her feet again. Months later, Madam Grace encouraged Isabella to go back to school. At first, she was hesitant. She couldn't bear the shame of going back to school after the news of her pregnancy had spread. But Madam Grace encouraged her to ignore the gossip and focus on her future. Isabella went back to school, determined to right her wrong and make her mother proud. After some years, she graduated from the secondary school and took her jump into the university. She graduated as a nurse after some years. Then, 10 years later, one rainy evening, Isabella was at the hospital when a nurse called her to attend to a new patient. When she entered the ward, she stopped. Lying on the bed was Vicky, her secondary school friend. She was looking weak, pale, and struggling to breathe. Vicky was shocked when she saw her friend now dressed in a clean white nurse uniform, successful, strong, and unbroken. Tears filled Vicky's eyes. Isabella, please, forgive me. I was young and stupid, and I was only parents' instructions. Please find a way in your heart to forgive me for all the pains and the humiliation I caused you during our time in secondary school. Isabella stood frozen, memory flooding back, the betrayal and the humiliation she endured. Then, with a soft smile, she picked up a stethoscope. I forgive you, Vicky. You see, this life has a way of teaching us a lesson, and I learnt mine and I moved on. Vicky began to cry, and Isabella held her close to her chest. That's okay, my friend. The important thing right now is for you to get better. They hugged each other tightly. Isabella let out the tears from her eyes as she hugged her friend tightly. Then she knew that this was the price of resilience, determination, and focus. Not only had she rebuilt herself, she had also made herself and her mother proud. Be careful of who you call your friends. One mistake can change your life forever, or worse still, ruin it. Always listen to your parents and obey their warnings. Thank you so much for watching this story. And if you enjoyed this story, please do share your thoughts in the comment section. Please like and subscribe to this channel till I come your way again with another interesting story. Stay blessed.